Okay, so the show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. We started out the show there with a clip. It was supposed to be a hymn to the United Nations by W.H. Auden, and it's appropriate because my guests today, which include Professor Lara Catalcola of the Division of Academic Affairs in the English Department, and two student members of LaGuardia's Model United Nations, Vildana Camidulina and Graciela Salazar. They're going to be talking about the LaGuardia Community College Model UN participation in the 2022 National Model United Nations Conference in Washington, D.C. this past November 4th and 6th. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
By the way, Laura, I don't know. Oh,
Okay.
yes, welcome all. Laura, help me out. So, Auden, I don't know, are you a British lit major or what was your focus in school?
I did study British literature. I'm not familiar with the anthem you're talking about, though, but that's exciting to know that he had a tribute to the model to the United Nations.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Fantastic.
remember if it was Auden or Robert Lowell, whoever it was. I'm trying to remember Auden's work.
Yeah,
One of them was one of them
WH.
wrote. Yeah, one of them wrote biographies of uh, of different folks in English literature. I can't remember if it was Auden or not, whether or how popular it was. It shows you how long it's been since I took
It was
British
Auden.
lit
It was Auden.
too. It was
Yeah.
Auden because the one poem I remember is he's writing. It's the T.S. Eliot one where he asks him a question about Ezra Pound,
Hmm.
and he says, "What would you look like if you came back from hell?"
Hmm.
So for all
Oh,
you, if you guys were British lit minors or majors, that joke would be that line would be funny,
yeah.
but obviously they don't appreciate it. That's another show. So I told you a little bit about the format. I wanted to start the show out by folks telling us a little bit about themselves, their backgrounds, their studies, before coming to LaGuardia. So who would like to start first?
I'm happy to join first because I am going to be needing to leave sooner than our other guests. But I'd like to just share a little bit about, this is Lara. I'd like to share a little bit about the Model United Nations delegation at LaGuardia. This is an extracurricular activity at the college that was started more than 10 years ago by former colleague David Styler and also Charles from the library. Um, they started this organization and it's been going strong for the past 10 years. We had a little bit of a hiatus because of the pandemic, but we restarted it again. And essentially, what Model UN at LaGuardia looks like is 10 students get prepared to discuss and debate topics that are relevant to the world stage, and they engage in these debates with other college students representing member states from the United Nations. And these students also come from other colleges and universities. And we go to a 3 day conference in Washington, D.C. And this past year, we represented Switzerland and we discussed and debated various issues such as cyber terrorism or the impact of climate change, just a number of World Health Organization issues like the pandemic and getting the virus out to populations. So a number of issues that are relevant to today. And our students work on these issues. They write a position paper, then they get prepared to meet with other delegates at the conference, and they discuss and debate issues and solutions about how these problems can be resolved. And the beauty of this whole 3 day conference is that you have college students who are deeply engaged in researching and figuring out ways to actually, tackle these problems that seem insurmountable on the surface, but with collaboration and thought and research and a plan, these things can get solved or at least get mitigated. So, and then the students walk away with excellent, experience interacting with uh, other students from various colleges and universities from around the world as well as the country, and they gain a lot of confidence in terms of their interpersonal debating diplomacy skills. So it's a really wonderful experience overall. And we've been doing this for 10 plus years. It's been successful.
Yeah, I have a little. Oh, we're getting a echo effect here. I have a little I have a little insight into this because I was actually in my Model UN when I was in junior high school
Yeah,
in
great.
Homestead, Florida. I had a I guess he was a history professor, and you know, for whatever reasons, he said, "Hey, you want to do this Model UN?" And I did it. I don't think we went above the high school level.
Yeah.
Because I remember we went to the Homestead Senior High School, and we were interacting with high school students. We were one of the, I guess we were one of the few uh, middle school folks in Florida. Middle school is like seventh, eighth, and ninth grade.
Right.
It's kind of like here, like ninth grade here is freshman high school.
Right.
But and I don't remember. I was probably in the eighth grade at the time. But one of the things I remember, I mean, one of the things I loved about it was the first time I ever got to interact with Robert's Rules of Order, right?
Mhm.
Uh, which is, I forgot what, parliamentary procedure,
Yeah.
which is the way the UN does business, right?
Right. And it's a little challenging for students to learn all that, but once you get to the conference and before you get to the conference, students are versed on the protocol and practices that get utilized at the conference, and so they get prepared, and they may or may not feel super confident about that, but once you start meeting in your sessions, whether you're on the World Health Committee or whether you're on the Environment Committee, they all follow these protocols and practices, and so they just get accustomed to it, right? So it's just kind of getting plunged into the circumstances and then starting to follow what happens. One thing, Hugo, you mentioned you did it in grammar school or middle school. A lot of students have done Model UN, and those students might end up doing it all the way through the college level, and they appear at the conference. A lot of students also have never done Model UN, and then they attend the conference. A lot of the students at LaGuardia who participated in Model UN have never done it before. But what's wonderful is through 10 weeks of intense preparation, writing position papers and researching their topics and researching their member state that they're representing, they get prepared and they become, even if before the conference they don't necessarily feel confident, once they get there, they realize they did all this work and research and they can compete with everyone else. And most of the students who attend the conference, they're from four-year universities and they're taking Model UN as a course, as a 300 level political science course. And our students are doing it as an extracurricular activity, but they go in and they're prepared and they can compete with the best of them. So I'm really proud of the hard work of all of our students. And just as a personal aside, I did Model UN when I was in college, all the way back when I was in college, and it was an amazing experience. And it is one of, aside from my internship abroad, aside from that experience, it was probably the most significant learning experience I had in college, and the one that most people asked about after college.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned your study abroad because, I mean, I've been familiar with the program at LaGuardia for years. I mean, I knew David did it, and I actually, years ago, when I created a study abroad program that took a few students to took about 24 students to
Yes,
Chile.
I remember that.
I had gone to Charles
Mm-hmm.
Keyes, who at the time was somebody that and people don't remember Ann Bell, who used to be our dean of academic affairs. She said, "Well, go talk to Charles Keyes, because
Yes.
or maybe it was somebody in the grants office at the time who said, talk to Charles Keyes because he used to be involved." And Charles turned me on to various programs that gave money. I'm forgetting the names of the guys down in
Mm-hmm.
Houston, but one of the things I was going to say is, wouldn't it be interesting? I mean, you said so all 10 were Switzerland,
Yes.
right? All 10. So wouldn't it be amazing if part of your preparation would have been a study abroad trip
Oh, yes.
to Switzerland
Yes.
to meet the folks? I mean, did you guys consider going to the United Nations and speaking to some of the folks at the office in down
Yes, you
there
know
from the
what? Yes,
Swiss folks?
normally what we do is I have in the past, whatever member state we represented, try to make a visit to the embassy. Every single
Right,
time that I've tried to do that, it just hasn't worked out. And our time frame at the
right,
conference is very limited. So we have one
right.
morning where that could happen. And for one reason or the whether our schedule or their schedule wouldn't allow for it. But from your lips to God's ears, I would love some funding to take our
Well,
students
let's.
to,
Well, I know of a little organization called the LaGuardia Foundation.
yes.
They got a lot of money. They've been bringing in a lot of money, and I mean, typically, they focus on need. But I have known, for example, when I took students to Chile, they gave money to one of the students, and that student went out and bought a camera with it,
Yep.
like a big, like an expensive digital camera, and
Yeah.
so it's not impossible.
Yeah.
It's just a matter.
I'm
It's a
making it
matter of
happen. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, just
Yeah, two things. There were, so you mentioned Charles. Charles was also one of our early founders of the Model UN, along with David,
right.
and so we appreciate all his support along with David's in building up Model UN at the college. And the other point, oh, now I'm blanking out on the other point. We were talking about funding. Oh,
Study abroad.
yeah, yeah, and then so the delegation point. So some colleges, they have the funding and the college class and population to have more than one delegation represented at the conference. We usually just take the one because our funding just allows for 10 students, and we like each of our students to be paired up with another student. So they represent 5 committees. Let's say World Health Organization, Economic Committee, or the Environmental Assembly. And so 2 students appear on each committee, and they work together to resolve those issues that that committee is entertaining at that time. So we take 10 students, one member state is what we represent, and but in future, who knows, if we get more funding and support, we would be able to take more than one delegation of students to the conference.
I mean, Switzerland is a very high profile kind of country to get. I can't remember who I got years ago, but it was not, certainly wasn't in in Europe. And I mean, the other piece of it is what's bizarre though is that the Swiss are neutral to
Yes.
begin with. So it's interesting that you find yourself
Yes.
at the United Nations.
It's
By the way, just so the audience knows, Laura's getting the lion's share of the time in this first half hour because she's going to be leaving. So we're going to get the students into the mix in a second.
Yes, and I think that once you hear from the students, it'll really give our listeners a really good understanding of what actually happens and how students are experiencing it. In terms of the neutrality of Switzerland, yeah, I think when the students speak, they're going to share what they found in their research, and yeah, it's historically a neutral country, but they found a lot of interesting information that you don't know about. Americans don't know a whole lot about the foreign policy of other countries, right? Because we know a lot about the United States, and the United States is a main player on the world stage, and continues to be. Who knows what will happen in the future? But everybody knows about the United States, right? So another wonderful aspect about Model UN is that our students are getting a really in-depth understanding about another country in the world, another member state, and it's the sort of global learning experience that, aside from actually going someplace else and really getting an in-depth understanding of culture and people and politics, this is such a great opportunity for students to have that global learning, because essentially, as I explained to the students when we are preparing, you are not LaGuardians, you are not New Yorkers, you are not Americans. You are the member state that you're representing. You have to live. If it's Switzerland, you're live, breathe, eat Switzerland. You are Switzerland at the conference. So, and when you go to the conference, that's how people, the other delegations will treat you. Oh, hey, Switzerland, how you doing, Canada? Let's get together and caucus, and that's the exchange. And that's the intensity of the experience. No one is there as a college student. No one is there as a LaGuardian or a New Yorker. It's the member state.
Total theater.
Yes. And sometimes sometimes you have interesting folks. Sometimes people really get into character. So if you have North Korea at the last conference, North Korea was shortly after Donald Trump had gotten elected. The last time we appeared, and so North Korea at that time got up in one of the committees and said, "Congratulations, United States, on electing your new president, but please stay out of our business, Donald Trump." So they and if you're representing Cuba, sometimes you have long live the revolution and down with the imperialist countries, that sort of thing. So it can get very theatrical depending on your member state.
That's good. Well, let's get the students into this. So, uh, who would like to go first? Vildana or?
And hey, Hugo, I'm just going to say thank you very much for having Model UN on your show. We really appreciate it. We hope more students get interested and involved. And I hope that I'm sure Vildana and Graciela are going to do a great job of explaining Model UN to your listeners.
You're checking out now?
I'm going to check out now. I'd love to stay,
Okay,
but I
very
have another meeting, as you know. So
Very good. See you later.
take care. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
All righty. Thank you.
Professor Mara Cattle-Cola,
Good
the
day.
English department, the academic affairs.
Signing off. Thank you.
So who is it? I think it's you, Vildana, who's creating an echo effect. So I won't talk when you unmute. So who would like to go first?
Would you like us to talk a little bit about ourselves, or should we stick to our experience at Model UN because we already started talking about?
I always want to hear about students. I always want to hear about the people that are on the show, their backgrounds. I think so does the audience. But then we can, if you want, we could slide into the Model UN because we're already in the second quarter. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, as known, my name is Vildana Hamidulina, and originally I am from Russia, but was born in ex-USSR country, Uzbekistan. Moved to United States when I was 17 years old by myself, and always knew that I wanted to pursue education in this country. And due to the fact that English is not my first language, I have made the decision to come to LaGuardia. Never regretted that decision. And as of today, I am liberal arts journalism major. So I'm studying journalism, and next semester I'm going to transfer to a 4-year. So this is a little bit about me and my academic background. And yeah.
Graciela.
Yeah, thank you, Hugo, for this having us in this chat, and thank you for your audience. Yeah, my background is I was born and raised in Mexico, and I hold a bachelor in international relations. And actually, I've been interested in international issues and global politics since then. And I participate also in a international meeting with the students from all Latin America countries. And it was a good experience also. And here I am political science major at LaGuardia, and I did also an internship in the Consulate of Mexico here in New York, and I always interested in United Nations and the issues that they are talking, and all the problems that they address is to me is really interesting. And yeah, it's my background. I always interested in international issues. Thank you.
So how did the two of you find yourself getting involved with the Model UN? I mean, how did you find out about it? How did you go about becoming a part of it?
Yeah, as I said, I am always interested in international issues, and at the school, the professor Ania from political science she invited me to be part of this model, and it was really interesting when I start thinking, because it's something like a go back to the UN studies. And yeah, I always wanted to be part of the solutions that the model the UN and try to promote, in environmental protection. Mainly, I am interested in that field of a study, and yeah, it's the way I get involved in this.
Um,
Vildan?
yeah, and for me, I had a prior history to that. Last semester, I had an opportunity to become a fellow um, of Pulitzer Center. And the moment it was announced at LaGuardia, I received an email from Professor Caticola, and she told me about this opportunity, and she asked me to come in for an interview just to talk and see more clear what is Model UN is about. And I found it very interesting for myself as a journalist, and especially because I mostly covered human rights issues around the communities, around Russian community, LGBTQ, and minorities. So yeah, that's how I got into Model UN.
All right. So, you become part of the Model UN, and you're told that you're going to be representing Switzerland. Why don't the two of you talk a little bit about the process you went through preparing for the event itself?
Yeah, well, I can go. Well, first we have to study the the foreign affairs, for example, of Switzerland. Also the strategies, the political strategies of the nation. Also the history. All the politics, social and economy issues in Switzerland, and what are the plans and strategies that the country is doing right now, and then yeah, and I was very interested in the theme of environmental protection, because Switzerland is one of the pioneers of the protection of environmental in many areas. So I start like that. Mhm.
I smiled a little bit after your question because to summarize how the work looked like is my laptop couldn't handle it. My laptop just was freezing all the time of the amount of links I had on my computer. And I don't think that I have an old computer. I just got it right before I got into LaGuardia, which is only like year and a half. So yeah, as Graciela said, it was a very extensive research on all of the aspects about Switzerland and about Switzerland's relationship with this world. And actually, for me, it was so interesting how this small European country was able to create such great connections around the globe. It fascinated me truly when I was doing my research.
I'm unaware of that. When you say connections, connections with who?
Um, like relationship between the countries. So on economical or just like how do you call it? Allies. Switzerland has allies all over the world. Maybe this way it's gonna be more proper to say.
Well, I mean, if you declare if you're neutral, that affords you the ability to work with whoever you want. Uh, which committees did you get put in? So I think Graziella, you were saying, were you involved with the environmental committee?
Yes, I was in the environmental assembly, and uh, yeah, to me is I think is nowadays with climate change, it's really important to work in these issues around the world. I mean, the climate change is something that is impacting around the world. And my committee was focused on the protection of and restoring the marine habitats, and what had been the, the work of all the nations in this issue. So even though Switzerland doesn't have like sea around, but he has doing a lot of work in this in the protection of these marine habitats, working with all members of states in United Nations and all organizations. So yeah, it was really interesting to study in all the history of Switzerland in the protection of the environment since the establishment of the panel on climate change in Geneva in since by the 90s, so 80s kind of. So yeah, so in Switzerland many panels and conference and climate change established there, and then later these policies that they implement and became global. So yeah, it was very interesting that.
So Vildana, what was your committee?
I was in General Assembly too, and the topic we discussed was migration and technology as a sustainable in a sustainable way. So after the debates, within 30 minutes, I believe, majority voted to work on migration and ability, and yeah, and the process began.
Now, when you're talking about migration, or they are talking about migration, are we talking about the way that people move around the world from countries where people are trying to leave because of whatever their issues are? Or is it, what are we talking about when they're talking about migration, and how that impacts countries? Let's say, I'm guessing countries that are taking people in, right? Because with migration, you've got people leaving, like you who left Uzbekistan, and then coming to the United States, and how that relationship works. So what were they trying to figure out?
I came from Russia. I was born in Uzbekistan.
Oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
Well, Uzbekistan was part of the Soviet
Mhm.
Union. That's what I was thinking of. Sorry. You're right. I got confused there. Thank you for hipping me up.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's getting confusing sometimes, but yeah, I think correct idea of what was going on. So, of course, all of the Europeans and more developed countries been trying to create solutions in order to create healthier ways and like healthy migration. And countries, undeveloped countries who do have these issues, they were trying to create solutions in order to help their countries economically or by developing something in their country so people wouldn't leave. So, and this is a debate now when developed countries are saying, okay, we'll take you in, but we need to create a balance in that. When undeveloped countries are like, please take our refugees or help us in our countries in order to keep them within the territory. So,
It's 1:30, and I just want to do a quick station break. The show is What's Going On here on LaGuardia Web Radio. And my guest today, well, one of our guests has left, Professor Lara Catacola, who was with the Division of Academic Affairs, the English department. She had to leave, but our two student members here are of the LaGuardia Model United Nations. We have Vildana Hamadulina, I said it this time without the K sound, and Graciela Salazar. And we're talking about the LaGuardia Community College Model United Nations participation in the 2022 National Model United Nations Conference in Washington, D.C. this past November 4th through 6th. So let's talk about, okay, you've done your research, whatever you had to do for whatever 10 weeks to prepare as an extracurricular activity. Now you go to Washington, D.C., right? Where was the conference actually held, and what facility down there?
It was in a hotel. It was a Marriott hotel, and the building itself had everything what we needed. So for
So you probably, yeah, just keep you all there together.
yeah, exactly. So we arrived. We did have an opportunity to like arrive a little bit early due to the fact that we're so close to DC, and we walked around, had a dinner. But when the conference started, no, we didn't leave the premises of the hotel at all. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about, you were there for 3 days. So what happens over the course of those 3 days? What's the breakdown of activities? You want to say something, Graciela?
Yeah. Well, there were very intensive days, but yeah, and at the end we went just to the museums, and yeah, but during the days we were in a intensive sessions, like since the morning until night, actually. And yeah, we have to be there in the committee working with the resolutions and with all the member states. Mhm.
You want to talk about your resolutions, the two resolutions that you found yourselves working on in each committee?
Yeah.
Um,
You were talking about it before. You were saying it focusing on saving of marine biology as in order to save the planet from climate change, right? That was your focus. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about the specific language, because I know about resolutions being involved with governance. Usually what happens in resolutions is that, they start by talking about all the issues, and at the very end, they'll usually say, therefore, and then they'll spit out, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
uh,
Eh, yeah, yeah,
oh,
go
if
ahead.
you want to, I'll add on after. I'll add on after. It's okay. You can go, Graciela.
Okay. Yeah, well, our proposals were based on reduce the plastic pollution, or make regulations for plastic pollutions, and also try to promote programs to restore the marine habitats, because actually 90% of the reefs around the world are disappear. So it's an emergency situation for the marine habitats. And yeah, and the resolutions were were based on try to to push the member states, like to follow the policies like they were actually before, talking about, and there are many resolutions, but the problem is in the implementations, right? There are many economic and social boundaries that limit the scope to the implementation of these policies. And then yeah, so we were trying to give new ideas, like to build new programs of cleaning and stop the pollution in the oceans. And yeah, the resolution was I think was pretty good. It was Switzerland, our country. We made like five in that resolution. Five points we made. Yeah.
Vildana?
Um, yeah. So the way the set up is there's official procedure and unofficial, and most of the work is done at unofficial procedure. Basically, all of the delegates are talking to each other, and when at first you make connections with different delegates, and you need to think logically as your country. Okay, I'm a Switzerland. Who am I allowed to work in reality? And you come up to these delegates and you create a group together and you start working on proposition paper. And I believe there are two drafts. The first draft is sent out, and the dais is letting you know if there are other delegates around the room who are working on the same ideas as you do, and you have to merge. Which means that if your idea is similar to another delegate from another country, you guys need to figure it out between each other and make sure that your work is going to get into that paper. And this is when it gets interesting because, as Professor Catacolo mentioned, a lot of students who come from Model UN, they take it as a class, and this is their final. So, and I do recall it was interesting actually how we were on our final draft. Our proposition from my delegation, our delegation at GA2, we had two propositions in the final draft, which is, I believe it's good for the first time. And some delegate said, I don't remember where he was from. I think it was like Afghanistan or Tajikistan. I found a mistake and I was like, these two things are talking about the same thing. This needs to be merged. And he suddenly screamed, oh, I don't know who wrote it. If we don't find this person, let's just delete it and send it out. And I just turned around and I tell him, you can't do that. This is someone's work. And at that moment, I realized, oof, that didn't sound like Switzerland. That sounded like me. And I calmed down and I was like, what about we're gonna work together and find the delegate and figure out as a team. So we eventually did find the person, but that was interesting how, and in the beginning people are all in characters, but closer to the end, some of them start to break their characters of the country. So that was my point of idea.
See, Graciela, you went to grab something there. What were you grabbing? Your paperwork from the event?
Yeah, I want to just try to see my resolution. There are many points that we uh,
Right.
we did, and actually, as Vildan was mentioned, in my committee, we didn't do a merge. Actually, we try to keep our ideas in our group, our working group. I mean, you can do it, you can do that merge, but also because it's important, it's like the spirit of UN, like to join with all the groups and to join with this and share the ideas. But in our case, I think we were actually we sponsor 12, yeah, 12 countries, and yeah, but I think was enough, and and my group was agreed to keep the resolution without merge, so we keep it like that. Mm-hmm.
All right. So, if you had to rate your performance as a delegate representing Switzerland at this event, how do you think the two of you did, or the LaGuardia in general? I mean, what were things you wish you had done differently, or things that you're glad that you did the way you did?
Oh, well, I guess I think all the whole thing. I think we did a good job. We also have 2 hours awards. My position paper was one of them, and I think yeah we worked very hard for that. But yeah, maybe prepare a little bit more in terms like how all the protocol works, and but I think we did very well in terms of the position paper was, I think, was really good. What was a really good position paper in the case.
I agree with the Graciela regarding the protocol at the conference itself, because the formalities we knew and we knew what type of research to make, but at GA2, for instance, at first I was a little bit lost what am I supposed to do when we start working on resolution papers and how to format it. So I had to just like walk around the room and just like chat with people a little bit and ask them how's their process is working, and that way I gained the idea what should I do at that moment. So I would just check on other people and do the same thing. But yeah, so I agree
Yeah.
with Graciela.
I didn't know if you were talking when Graziella was speaking. I thought she might have talked about using Robert's rules in that kind of setting, which I think everybody struggles with when they've have first been, had to run a meeting with those rules. And there's a, having been somebody who's worked in governance for many years and watched that those kinds of rules in action. I mean, especially people who really learn those rules. There are two schools of thought. One school is that people think that people use the rules to take control of meetings and dictate terms and get their what they want and outcomes. And there's certainly plenty of examples of that historically, whether it's international affairs, national affairs, or even in our own Senate. But then there's the school that says that with those rules, everybody gets an opportunity. Everybody has power. They have power to exercise uh, in the meeting if they know. But it's a kind of a thing that you can read it all you want in the book. Until you start doing it, you're not going to learn how to do it. The only way to learn how to do it is to do it. And at times, lose an argument because you didn't know what you could have done. And slowly, but it just comes from time and experience. So I don't know what your experience was with Robert's rules in that effect, because they're, like I said, they're utilized in more than just the United Nations.
Yeah, and I think it's a good exercise for diplomacy, is to approach people, to talk about it, to talk about your concerns and your projects, and also hear other ideas from other people. It's a very good exercise actually, and I meet people from California University. We talk about some obviously issues of the committee, but also the how is the college there, what is the experience. It was very interesting, and also yeah, like as I say, you practice diplomacy with others. You try to convince them like join us and in this group to work in this resolution to um, to give us some solutions and also to create a strategy in the implementation of the ideas. So it's very interesting.
Definitely shows in this short um, amount of time what are your strengths and what things you still should work on, because within minutes sometimes you need to create a speech, you need to write extensively, you need to do the research over there at the present time, and you need to know how to communicate with others because it's all connections. In order to get involved in a resolution paper with someone, you need to talk to people and you need to interest them. And maybe on one side it was better for us to be Switzerland because again it's a neutral country.
Yeah, it's a neutral country that a third of the population is always in the military and, stationed. That's the way Switzerland works. Is everybody takes turns being in the military. Every home has a firearm. They have like a gun that's been uh, given to them to keep at the house, and it's an interesting country. I had one Swiss student last year, and he's gone on to Hunter, but he's kind of interesting. And on top of it, you know, to focus on climate change with a country that obviously they have a delicate issues with the environment, being on the top of the world there, on top of the Alps. But it's a country that's famously known for money. They have banks where rich people hide their money, ants, again, that echo effect again. And, rich people historically are not into climate change because it costs money to take care of the planet. But we've got about, I don't know, a little over 10 minutes before the end of the show. I wanted to give the two of you an opportunity. I'll also check on the Twitch stream here to see if we've got anybody watching. Oh no, this is somebody we get somebody doing ads on our thing all the time. So I'm not interested. But I was going to ask the two of you, after this experience or just in general, what are some of the things you're thinking about doing in the future? I mean, for example, will you participate in the Model UN again? Did you hear that question, Vildana? I saw somebody talking to somebody.
You asked about. Sorry, somebody just walked in. I'm in
Right.
the office
Yeah, I hear
at
you. I
LaGuardia,
understand.
actually.
The question was basically, what are you going to be doing in the future, and do you have plans to ever participate in the Model UN again?
My academic plans are to transfer to 4 year, but obviously after I graduate, I do want to connect my life with the journalism field. That's what I enjoy doing. I like to explore, find stories, raise new issues which are not as much talked about as they should. And what I found from Model UN is that it is an interesting organization. They definitely are trying to do better for the world. And actually, in the end of our experience during the Washington weekend, I asked Professor Anya, if she knows anything about internships, and she said that they actually do something, and she shared a link. So I'm going to look into that after my transferring process. Right now is pretty tense time for me, but yeah, I found UN is a very interesting organization.
Are you going to
World
stay when you
organization.
transfer? Are you going to stay within CUNY, or are you thinking of going outside of the CUNYverse?
I'm sorry, you just broke up. I did not
Are you
hear
going to
the
transfer
question.
to another CUNY, or are you going to go to somewhere else?
I am trying CUNY, SUNY, and private institutions, including Ivy universities.
Okay. Because I was just going to say the CUNY School of Journalism is one of the top schools of journalism. I mean, it's the graduate school, but it's right up there with Columbia. So if you leave, you can always come back, I
Oh
guess.
yeah.
Graciela, what do you?
Yeah. I think, well, I, I really involved in the UN, and I am planning to go back, I guess, to do an internship in the mission of Mexico to United Nations, because I think this organization does a pretty good job. I think it gives hope to humanity, and they address very critical topics that they need to be taken into account. So yeah, I think will continue develop my career in UN, and after this I planning also to transfer. I think I'm gonna continue in CUNY, international studies, and yeah, I'm gonna continue that. And also I am interested in working with city government, the local government too. I am studying also, this semester I study practical politics of New York City, which find fascinating how the politics work in the city, and what are the policies and strategies in climate change. I also study the environment protections of New York City, and the measures and strategies of the from the mayor's office, and it was fascinating to learning that. And I'm planning also to do an internship in government office, through my professors and in New York politics. Mm-hmm.
This is good. All of this stuff looks good for transfer, for graduate school, for jobs. And the thing I was going to say as well is like, once you start working with Robert's rules, like you will find that it's used in a lot of other situations. And it's really good when people, like the worst thing with Robert's rules is when you get into a meeting and somebody who's running it doesn't know what they're doing. Those are the meetings that go very long and nothing gets accomplished. And then when you've got a meeting where somebody does know how to run it, does know the rules, knows how to give everybody the opportunity to speak, but also keeps it running on time, then things actually get done. So, and it's really kind of fascinating because when you find yourselves in these situations, there's usually two kinds of people. They're the people who want to run the meeting and don't know what they're doing. And then there's the people who do know how to run the meeting and, need to be given the opportunity to do so. So I think one of the things you're going to, again, since and you were talking a lot about, there's a whole nother world of resolving conflicts besides Robert's rules is just to keep order in a meeting. But then there's this other approach where it's like a kind of a community based, where everybody gets an opportunity to share their opinion, and then you build consensus and you go from there. And that works well when everybody, is playing nice. But when there is conflict, something like Robert's rules is a really good thing to keep order. So I think that's something, again, that's a skill you can take with you. So we got about 5 minutes before we'll probably close out the show with our United Nations anthem that I found on there as well. But I want to give you an opportunity to, any last words you'd like to share, or anybody you want to thank, any of those kinds of things you'd like to do?
Well, I can go. Well, thank you for having us, and I will say, like, all students that that are now in LaGuardia that join this Model UN maybe next year. I think it's a good opportunity. Even though you are not interested in political science or these international studies, but you can learn many things join this model. Like, as I said, like, you practice how to work with others, how to exercise diplomacy, and it's a very good experience. You're gonna stay with all the committees and travel to DC, and you will go to the museums and have a very good time with all the classmates and the professors. I think it was a very good experience to me. I really enjoy it, and I was happy to have one of the best position paper. I didn't even believe that because there are more than 900 students from around the country and the world. So I was like, wow. So you just do your best, and you will enjoy this. Thank you, and thank you your audience.
Vildana?
Before we go, first off, thank you, Hugo, for hosting us here today. It was an interesting conversation, and honestly, so many things been going on with the Model UN, the preparation, then going to DC, then coming back, and it's already midterms, and after midterms, it's finals. It's like building up, and it was great to remember how all of this process went through, and most definitely, if somebody would ask me, should I do it? Should I try it? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. Do you gain any new skills? Yes. Um, and yeah, as Graciela said, it's a great opportunity to travel, to learn something new, um, and yeah, highly recommend. Highly recommend. I wanted to say something else. And our professors were so great because obviously we weren't only talking about like Model UN, Model UN. There was some like academia talks, wander around. Um, I feel like I know much better Professor Katakol and Professor Anja from this experience, and this is It was interesting to know their about their life, how they became professors, why are they interested in Model UN or like political science. So yeah, and it brings people together. You feel more community here at LaGuardia, and you find new friends. So
Yeah, one thing I always hear from LaGuardia, former LaGuardia students, when you move on, is you will, when they come back, is they always say like, "Oh, I miss LaGuardia," and we'll say why, and it's because we got so much support here that when you move on, even within CUNY, there isn't a lot of support. I mean, hopefully, wherever you go when you transfer, they will give you some sort of transfer orientation to at least get you ready for the experience at that particular institution. But typically, it's not the case. And but then even once you're there, the services that we provide, all the tutorial activities, all the extracurricular activities. I mean, students, the first year seminars which I teach, I spend so much time trying to tell them, you paid for this. You should be going to the writing center. You should be going to all these places, and they'll know that when they leave. They don't learn. That's hard for them to take
that's
in
so
the first semester. But so you'll miss us, well, as we will miss you. But I just want to thank the two of you for being on the show. And for those folks who are watching, the show is What's Going On. Here I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez. And today we had on Professor Lara Catacola of the Division of Academic Affairs in the English Department, and two of her students, members of LaGuardia's Model United Nations, Vildana Hamadulina and Graciela Salazar. We've been talking about LaGuardia's Model UN participation in the 2022 National Model United Nations Conference in Washington, D.C., which was this November 4th through 6th. And they did very well. Maybe one day you will represent your own countries in the real UN at some level or another.
Yeah,
So thank you both
I
for
hope
being
so.
on. Thanks everybody for watching. And Mr. Pope, why don't you take us out with our UN anthem? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
thank you.
Thank you.